Shalom, all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Rakah, Kadash. Double honors unto the apostles and elders of GreatMillStone who rule well, and shalom to the whole full elect. Okay, this video is going to be entitled, How Did Israel Become Gentiles? Alright, because guess what? There was a moment in time when the nation Israel became Gentiles unto the people, unto the Most High power. Okay, and basically, you know, this happened on many occasions, but there was a key moment in time where I'm gonna go through, a basic level of understanding to basically understand how it can happen that we become scattered, and at this current time, how we got put in the present predicament that we are in. All right. So it all goes back to the foundation of the nation of Israel being formed by being the last nation on the face of the earth. The covenant was promised to the patriarchs, being Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. All right. And how that Abraham was shown the land, and they all, at some point in time, dwelt in the land which they were sojourners upon the earth, dwelling in the land of Canaan. Okay. At different occasions, but then went into Egypt basically through Joseph being set up over there due to a dearth taking place in all the land in all the world except for the land of Egypt. Okay, so, and while they were in Egypt, we grew from a clan, of 70-odd souls into a greater nation, into a multitude before the Egyptians, as to where they according to prophecy, put us into slavery. Okay, and when they put us into slavery, they basically killed, because we all, as Jake, true to the spirit of the word, the Bible, we went forth and multiplied. So we were having a lot of sex, bringing forth a lot of children, and multiplying our seed, the seed of Israel, before the nations in the midst of Egypt. And they said, look, man, at least these people take over our land and be stronger than us, because they could see that we're stronger than them. They said, they basically started killing all the babies under 2 years old. All right. Whereas this led to Moses being brought forth as a savior of the nation of Israel, and then taking us out of the land after the plagues that was set upon Egypt, and having a great deliverance. And that's when the nation of Israel was established, to magnify the name of the Lord, as it tells you in the book of Romans 9. All those things were done to magnify Yahweh. And it tells you all throughout the first 5 books that how great our nation was known due to the acts that sold through, Mashah, Moses, and Aaron, being a prophet unto Moses. It was made known amongst the nations, and they were shaking in their boots. So when it was established, we had the covenant. Moses came, brought forth the covenant that was crafted by the finger of the Most High from a chariot, being a laser beam. And then these were key commandments, okay, to basically, it was like an overview in the book of Deuteronomy 28, letting you understand that, look, you follow these words, these are all the perks that are going to come. And there's a lot less perks than, there's about 13 verses worth of perks that will come in keeping the covenant, which ain't nothing. They speak volumes, but the negative, the curses that come with basically not keeping the covenant, are great and dreadful. And guess what? We're in the midst of them, right? That's why today we're known as so-called black people, so-called Hispanics, and so-called Native Americans. And then even so far to say you have some of our nation that are deceived into believing they're so-called white people, so-called Chinese, so-called Japanese, so-called Arabs, so-called Africans. They're under that deception because we've been scattered amongst the nations. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to start with this scripture being Deuteronomy 28:15. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy power, to observe, to do all his commandments and his statutes which I command thee this day. It's lucky. Command these command thee this day, and these statutes which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. So it goes on, all right. And there's two main scriptures or verses I want to harp upon. It says Deuteronomy 28:48. Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee, in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. And that happened during what captivity? The transatlantic slave trade, okay, whereby Esau, Edom, the red Hebrew Edomite, was raised up from grunting in the Caucasus Mountains, okay, to infiltrating our kingdom, being what they entitled the Dark Ages, due to our rulership, the so-called Negroes ruling at that time, you know, Judah, Benjamin, Levi, the kingdom of Judah, which has sprinkles of the other tribes, you know, but they were the main bulk that were left in the land. And we basically had a kingdom in Europe, okay, even in the Middle East as well as North Africa, okay, a far-reaching kingdom of rulership during that Dark Age period, the Middle Ages. And basically during that time it said, therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies. So Esau was raised out of the Caucasus Mountains, infiltrated, was dusted up. You know, the Amalekites could be the key contribution to that happening. The Most High working with them, all right, through, you know, who today are known as the so-called Jews, all right, making Kagan Bullen, as it tells you, all right, who created something known as Judaism, which is not found in the Holy Bible. Right, it's a play on the bastardization of the worship of the following of the Bible. Okay, so basically they were raised up, and when they were rose up, the gun was formed as the sword of their blessing, which, true to prophecy, which Most High Power is all about, because it tells you the testimony of Yahushua, the spirit of prophecy in the book of Revelations. It was fulfilled in that his blessing of the sword come into effect, and that he broke the yoke of our rulership over him. And guess what he done? It said, and he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. And that's what he did, and he destroyed us. He did as well in the captivity of the transatlantic slave trade, basically by taking out Gad, Issachar and Reuben that were in the land of North America, all right. And basically they weren't taking slavery the way that they were unprofitable slaves onto Esau, Edom, the red Hebrew Edomite, the so-called white man as is known today. And basically what he did is he went over to the west coast of Africa and worked with the Hamitic nations and the Ishmaelite nations, and basically rounded up the so-called Negroes, which were identified by their customs such as circumcision and speaking broken Hebrew, all right, and took them from the west coast and took them over to places like South America, Central and North America, and basically made them to serve hardcore called bondage. The Lord shall, verse 39, the Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth. All right, the eagle being what the signage of Esau. Okay, going back, you had a movie known as The Eagle, which starred, funny enough, a Jake, which I believe by the Spirit, by the name of Channing Tatum, who played who was basically trying to find an eagle in the land of England. All right. That had been lost amongst the Picts because they esteem it so highly that the eagle shouldn't be lost. But as symbology is today carried forth with the American bald eagle, the pride of America, and various other nations, Germany. Okay, all these Edomite nations, they have a bald eagle as their animal symbology. A nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand. Why? Because they spoke English. All right. Spanish, Portuguese, these different dialects that basically are of their tongue, a nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of old, nor show favor to the young. And that's what he did. You'd have an old man in slavery, serving hard bondage, and that was to fulfill prophecy, because what? We didn't follow the Bible. And what did that do? By taking us into slavery, it scattered the people. Because remember, prior to that, you also had 70 AD, which happened, which, I'll go into as well through the course of this lesson, and basically scattered us from our land. But the West Coast was basically a place for us to be nourished for a time, for a moment, before we enter into hardcore bondage. So even we fled into the interiors of Africa, but remember as well, they fled every which way. So into, west from Jerusalem, south from Jerusalem, north from Jerusalem, east from Jerusalem. So you had our people all over the land at that time, and that was a primary scattering. Okay, but this is what it's going to say. It's going to break it down here in the 63rd chapter, 63 to 64th chapter. Okay, and it shall come to pass that as the Lord rejoice over you to do you good and multiply you, so the Lord will rejoice over you to destroy you and to bring you to naught. Okay, so the Lord rejoice over you to do you good, because why? Because you're keeping the laws, statutes, and commandments of the Bible. But when you stop doing that, it said the Lord will rejoice over you to destroy you. He will enjoy punishing you for all the things that you're doing against the Most High Power, and to bring you to naught. You shall be plucked from off the land whither thou goest to possess it. So we're going to be plucked off of our land, okay? And the Lord shall scatter thee among all people from one end of the earth even unto the other, and there thou shalt serve other gods which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. Okay, even wood and stone being like, for example, Islam, the Kabbalah stone, and these wooden idols and stone idols like Christ of the Andes. That was basically a curse that's been manifest today. Okay, but basically this was done, and the Lord scattered us, and that's what the main thing that makes us a Gentile is this. Okay, so that shows you that we were scattered amongst the nations, and then being scattering, basically, well, already it said, and the Lord shall scatter thee among all people from one end of the earth even unto the other, and there thou shalt serve other gods. Now, where did our identity as Israelites? What does the word Israel even mean? It means, Israel means in the Hebrew, Yasha Allah. He is a prince of the power. In that meaning, if you're a prince, okay, that means you're the son of a king. So our nationhood, our nationality, is dictated by the fact that we are the sons of the Most High Power. So if we serve other gods, what does that then make us in turn? It makes us not Israelites, first and foremost, because then we're serving something else, and we'll follow according to those customs, all right? And that's where cutting off of our true identity stems from, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. So basically, in serving of these other nations, and these other nations' idols and other ideologies, we lost our nationality. Okay, so to build upon that point, here's an example. Here's a breakdown of how, not a breakdown, but here's more understanding on that point. So this is Romans 2:25. For circumcision verily profiteth. Now, how the circumcision was a form of token, as a show of the covenant being bestowed upon us from Abraham, and it was done. Abraham was circumcised 100 years old, I believe, and Isaac on the 8th day, right? And Ishmael when he was like 13 or in his early teens, basically, something to that effect. I can't remember off the top of my head at this moment, but Isaac was circumcised, and then all of those after Isaac were circumcised in accordance. All right, and that basically was a show of the keeping of a covenant, which is going to break down. For circumcision verily profiteth, if thou keep the law. So the law is basically the keeping of the covenant, is basically what makes you circumcised unto the Lord. But if thou be a breaker of the law, thy circumcision is made uncircumcision. So even though you physically get circumcised on the 8th day, guess what, man? All right? If you don't honor the covenant, it don't matter that you're carnally been circumcised, because the Lord doesn't, he don't look on the outward appearance, he looks on the inward, he looks at your spirit. So there's no profit in you being circumcised anyway, because the Most High would determine you uncircumcised. Therefore, if the uncircumcision keep the righteousness of the law, shall not his circumcision be counted for circumcision? Best example is Abraham. Abraham didn't get circumcised for 100 years, but you better believe that the Most High looked upon him as a circumcised man. He called him a friend. All right. So these carnal things in the keeping of the law don't determine whether you're righteous or not, but you are to keep it as a show of your faith. All right. Don't get it misconstrued. And shall not uncircumcision, which is by nature, if it fulfill the law, judge thee, who by the letter and circumcision does transgress the law. For he is not a Jew which is one outwardly, neither is that circumcision which is outward in the flesh, but he is a Jew that is one inwardly, and circumcision is that of the heart, being your mind, having your mind upon Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, him open up your pineal gland, all right? Because you got people out there that get circumcised on the 8th day, but guess what? The Lord ain't dealing with them. They're not circumcised in mind, in the spirit, okay? And circumcision is that of the heart, in the spirit, and not in the letter, whose praise is not of men, but of Yahweh. Okay, so this is example is shown about the profiting of circumcision by the mind, and how it doesn't profit in the book. Sorry, I'm going Ecclesiasticus, in the book of Maccabees. All right, the 1st chapter. Okay. 1 Maccabees 1 and 11. In those days when there were out of Israel wicked men who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us, for since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow. So this device pleased them well. All right. So this is basically when Israel fell upon hard times, and they said, yo, if we make a covenant with the heathen round about us, we're good, we're set. And that pleased much of those of the hierarchy of the nation of Israel. So this device pleased them well. Then certain of the people were so forward herein that they went to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinances of the heathen, whereupon they built a place of exercise at Jerusalem according to the customs of the heathen, being a gymnos. This is during the time of the Hellenized world taking over. If you read up, it tells you about Alex, the son of Philip of Macedonia, being who is entitled today Alexander the Great. It was during the Hellenization period upon the earth, and basically when this took place, they built a gym, which the word gym goes back to the Greek word gymnos, which means naked, because they were basically uncovered with their penises hanging out, man, just naked in a gym, sweating, pumping weights. All right. And that was a custom of the heathen. Not to say they never endowed in exercise, that she never exercised or was into any form of training, but that specific way of working out was something that was a custom of the Greeks, right? Made themselves uncircumcised. How did they make themselves uncircumcised? These are men up in age that were circumcised on the 8th day. We broke it down in the book of Romans. Basically, when they didn't follow the law, if you don't follow the law, if your mind is not in tune with Yahweh Bashem Yahushai Bashem Rakah Kadash, basically you're making yourself uncircumcised. He that walketh out the way of understanding shall remain in the congregation of the dead. You're basically uncircumcised, right? And forsook the holy covenant and joined themselves to the heathen, and were sold to do mischief. All right. So that's how you become a heathen, basically. someone, basically, that's how the nation of Israel became Gentiles. I'm trying to remember, I'm sure the scriptures are meant to pull. But for now, man, I guess that'll do, man. I pray you were edified. Shalom.